I know this is not really the best of ways to be photographing. I mean, holding the camera on my dash, probably bouncing around a bit. But I don't know, it's just, it's a Friday afternoon, and I didn't feel like sitting around at the house. And so I just figured I'll jump into my lovely little white Jetta and go for a little spin. It's essentially southwest of Red Deer, and tootling along here is a typical country highway heading directly west. Most of the roads in Alberta are north and west, like north, south, and east, west. We're on quite an excellent grid by and large. You know, of course, there's some odd little side roads and things to circumvent the lake or whatever. Some kind of a nuclear underground industrial military complex. Yeah, I don't know. Alberta does have some very interesting military industrial aspects about it. Obviously, the incredible abundance of oil here is certainly a strategic situation. But apparently, the airport at Edmonton, the international airport at Edmonton, Nisku actually, but they call it Edmonton International Airport, which is north of here, where I'm driving, that is. But that airport controls more airspace than any airport on the planet, apparently. And that coupled with the Mayo, the Air Force Base, which is just, well, yeah, it's actually a bit northwest-ish of Edmonton. And that Air Force Base, coupled with the international airport, together control an incredible amount of airspace, and yeah, that's something. And so it is interesting to note that a friend of mine who has deceased, rest in peace, he told me some years ago that he was privy to information. In fact, he, I believe, indicated that he was a first-hand observer of this, in fact. They were doing some road work at the base of the Collins Barrow building in Red Deer, which is a prominent building. The top two floors, 12 and 13, are not accessible. In fact, that's verboten. The elevator will not take you there. There's no way to get there by stairs. Those are doors that are locked. But there's an odd array of antennas up on that building, and yeah, I'll see if I can find some photos or make some photos to show you. But it is sitting right in front of what I believe to be the Jewish headquarters for Western Canada. And I do have photos of that as well, but I do intend to make some more. Geez, we're on some bumps here. There are some look at some of the electrical infrastructure that is part of the Alberta grid. Yeah, and you can see the grid of pretty well everywhere is above ground, and so, you know, all this talk about, oh, these horrible terrorists and so forth. If there were terrorists that were intent upon compromising, you know, anything here, that certainly would be a way to do it, and it would be an easy way. Nobody's guarding all of that. You know, you can just blow up those towers very easily. Not that I'm suggesting that be done. I'm not, but I'm just observing that it is a relatively easy task. Yeah, so here I'm coming to a stop with a bit of a gravel road ahead. I'm not sure exactly where I am, and so I'm going to have a look at my map, and then I'll talk some more. So now I'm heading south And we were talking about the Collins Barrow building, and we were talking about the control of airspace. And I was going to tell you what my friend revealed was when they were doing this road work below that building under Gates Avenue, it's just below the hospital, right by this Western headquarters for the international parasites, in my opinion. They found, apparently, a concrete encased cable system, and there were NATO badges on the outside of this concrete holder for this cable system. And so NATO cables that are right there at the Collins Barrow building, with all these antennas and so forth on the roof, top 2 floors inaccessible, which sits in front of the Everglades apartment building, a heritage building that was built in the 1960s by an eccentric Jewish individual. It has all these odd stones and rocks. Very interesting collection for a geologist to consider. And I do believe that it actually exceeds the height limits for walls and fences in the city. But, you know, obviously being a Jewish enterprise, that doesn't really matter. And it is very evident that Red Deer is indeed a city, Calgary and Edmonton, completely infested by the international parasite and totally under its control. Yeah, tentacles of the beast are definitely heavily present there. And so, yes, that's really one of my little ramblings and concerns. And while we are talking about Red Deer being what it is, in 2019, Red Deer received, I believe it was either $512 or $513 million. And I believe this came from the provincial and the federal government combined. And when it was asked of City Council through the city clerk's department, I guess the city manager's department, and this is by way of a friend of mine who is in fact a lawyer and looked into this. He asked, where did that $512 million go for? Well, apparently $138 million was slated for solving homelessness in Red Deer. We do have some homeless people, and some of whom are dying in our bush. We have quite a lot of forest in and around Red Deer. And the rest of it was frittered away to some 60 different NGOs. Now, Red Deer is a city of 100,000 people, and I've lived there since 1988, and I can guarantee you there are no 60 NGOs operating in Red Deer. And when I did, in fact, ask some workers who I happened to catch the attention of, who represented one of these NGOs that operate in Red Deer, essentially a soup kitchen for the homeless. And I asked them if they were aware whether that organization received any money, and I was told that that information was beyond their pay scale, and so they were not really privy to that information, which I thought was rather odd, because if I was working there for that agency, no matter at what level, I would certainly know if the agency was in receipt of any serious amount of money. And so I found that was interesting. Now we're heading west again. And that was interesting. 60 NGOs in a city of 100,000. And then I looked into what 138 million could buy a person or a city. There's a hotel for sale with 133 rooms in Red Deer for just under $7 million. At the current housing prices for, say, a 3-bedroom bungalow in Red Deer at around $350,000, $138 million can buy over 400 3-bedroom bungalows. Probably leave some money over for some golden sinks and taps. Yeah, expensive Spanish tile work. Where is it? There's still people dying in the bush. And then on a final note about people dying, a Negro from Sudan, an immigrant, something that was let into the community with a hammer and a machete, but I'm not sure whether he used a machete or not, but went into a medical clinic in Red Deer. And this is just a short while ago, this week, I think it was on Tuesday, and bludgeoned a young doctor. He was only about 45 or 47 years old, and bludgeoned him to death with that hammer. And then when the police came, he threw that blooded hammer. One person indicated that the hammer was so blooded that you couldn't even see the claw hammer part. You know, the handle was visible, but the rest of it was blood. And this poor doctor was yelling, "Help me, help me, call 911, and so that was done. But my question is, how did this hoodie-wearing Negro get into that clinic with a hammer and a machete? But apparently he was wearing, a big baggy hoodie, which Negroes tend to wear. And then at his arraignment, he claims that he's really sick, and therefore wasn't really capable of knowing what he was doing, and pretends that he doesn't even know that he did the thing. But of course he was caught red-handed. Of course, in my opinion, I think he should be hanged, and we should, he was caught red-handed. Everybody, there were a whole bunch of witnesses. So there shouldn't even have to be a trial. We shouldn't have to spend public money to defend this creature. Now, how many times are Negroes going to get away with killing white people? The same issue this week down in the crazy United States of America. A 25-year-old Negro shot a 5-year-old white boy in the head, killed him in front of his 2 little sisters, aged, I think it was 6 and 7, or possibly 6 and 8. The 2 young little girls were witness to their little brother's head being shot off by this nigger that is the neighbor, who was ticked off that the little boy had ridden his bicycle, his little tricycle or bicycle, on the Negro's lawn. Did you hear about that in the news? No. But the news is still awash with yakety-yak about George Floyd, the porn star petty criminal who was buried in a golden casket, allegedly. Some of us think he was never actually killed, and the whole thing was a huge other psych-op that's being perpetrated upon us by the international parasite. And white people had better hurry up and get organized and wake up to this, because we are being genocided overtly, and the Jewish media is totally pushing all of it. Indeed, they've got most of, or a good part of the world convinced that they need to wear coffee filters or diapers over their face, as if that's going to protect them from anything. Indeed, it's going to make them sick, and then make the rest of us sick. And their cast-off face masks and all that is becoming a major litter issue on beaches and in the garbage and so forth. And these things are the ones that are going to cause problems because of course people's infected whatever, you know, maybe they're smokers or, you know, they're sick for whatever reason. Their body is expelling poisons and toxins. You know, our environment is rife with those horrible things, toxins and you know, chemtrails and fluoride and canola oil and soy, and we are really in trouble, and we better organize really soon, white people, because there's not too many of us left anymore. We were down from 35% or so 100 years ago. Now there's about 6-7% of us left. Yeah, and so that is the situation. Anyway, I think I'll just sign off now, because this is essentially an experiment, just me going for a little drive and testing to see how well does my little Lumix camera pick up my voice and record, you know, this image, these images, and then stores it all on the magical little plastic card with some flattened gold wires on it. It is absolutely magical. And I don't really believe in magic, but I think it's some kind of alien technology that I'm holding in my hands. But that's another story for another day. Thanks a lot for watching, you guys, and hopefully I hope you found this interesting. And I will be if this works out, I'll post more of these kind of yakety yaks, because it's kind of fun. Well, in my opinion, whether that's in your opinion, of course, that all, I guess, will be evident from whether you subscribe or not. So, wishing you a happy day. May God bless you and yours. And this is Gert-Jan Zwingler signing off in Alberta, Canada, on a cloudy day.